1948, Meher Baba opened the doors of Merazad. And this photograph was taken by Shamian Deuce when she and her mother, Ivy Deuce, Murshida Ivy Deuce, visited Merazad. And this was the door, the key in the door with which Meher Baba opened the door of Merazad. So what happened was that he never gave any indication as to what his plans were about the new life, when it was going to start, or what it was. He didn't even mention the word new life to anybody. But what he did was he sent the ladies out for shopping to Pune to buy salwar kameez and things like that. And they figured that Baba must be having something in mind for travel, because otherwise he never ever, they all wore patched coats and, things like that. So he sent them off, and this was a sewing machine that my father, when he was in Singha, had worked on. So they came and they stitched everything at home. There were no tailors and so on and so forth. So Meher Baba then began giving hints about the new life before the beginning of 1949. He had issued a circular on 1st January 1949 stating, "The year 1949 marks an artificial end to an artificial beginning, and the real beginning to the real end." He also warned that 1949 would be the year of tests and troubles for all, and of a great personal disaster for himself. From January 1949, Baba's hints became more pronounced, but no one could follow what he meant. So before proceeding to Mount Abu in 1949, Baba was very, very strict about avoiding physical contact with the opposite sex. He had even ordered that no one should shake hands with the opposite sex. Baba had also decided about the matter of the disposal of the Mandlis' bodies according to their preference in the event of death. Somebody said they would like to be buried, others said they want to be cremated. So all these questions he discussed. At the beginning of August 1949, Baba informed the Mandli that he would be coming to Mehrabad from Merazad to discuss and decide about the Mandli's future. 5 days of meetings were scheduled from 15th to 20th August. But he arrived on August 1st to tell them. However, there was the issue of the disposal of property. From the very first day of the meetings, Baba had taken a vigorous and decisive approach regarding the disposal of his movable and immovable properties. And he had no cash. They only had 6,000 rupees on hand, which Kaka was the treasurer, was the cashier for emergencies. So, the most important thing that he said was that when he dropped his body, they should remember that when he left his body, that he should be buried in the tomb. So now the question of Mehrabad and Merazad came. Now, Baba wanted to dispose of Mehrabad and Merazad. So there were two wealthy disciples of his, Nariman Darachandji and Meherji Karkaria. So Nariman said that he would take over Merazad and look after Merazad and all its taxes or whatever had to be paid. And Meherji said that he would look after Mehrabad. And Baba told both of them that you can sell it and you can do whatever you want with the money. I have nothing to do with these two properties. So Nariman told Baba, if it were a question of selling them, we would not be involved, we would not involve ourselves. So Baba said, now these properties are yours, not mine. I have no objection to your keeping them or selling them. Of course, the tomb was in Baba's name. That's it. Nothing else. So there were 4 alternatives for the Women Monthly. You'll have to keep warning me, otherwise I'll go on and on. So there were 4 alternatives for the Women Monthly. And first, if any of you have some member of your family provide for you financially, you can stay on at Mehrabad Hill quarters, but there will not be any members of the Men Monthly down the hill to help you. You can work for your living and put aside anything that you've spared for families that have so far been dependent on you. You can do what you like and have nothing more to do with me. You can leave everything to me and do exactly as I say, accepting with full faith whatever decision I make for you. So, there were 3 kinds of people in the new life. And Baba had sent circulars to all of them, to everybody, including my father. Yes wallas, no wallas, and arrangement wallas. So my father said no because my mother had a problem, physical problem, and he said she was sick and in and out of the hospital, so he said no. But as it turns out, he was the most dedicated worker during the new life. And then there were yes-wallas, and there were 16 yes-wallas and 4 women. 16 men and 4 women. So when people talk about the new life, what they forget is there were people who had dedicated and surrendered their life to Baba. They had given their funds, their properties, and everything to Meher Baba. So whose responsibility was it to take care of them? Meher Baba's. So among them, the people whom he said that he was going to give up everything and go for the new life, one of them was Papa Jasawala, Erach Jasawala's father. Now, these are all stories that you will never normally not read, but these have come down from all of them narrating it to my mother, to my father, and to me. So I'm happy to share them with you. But when Papa Jasawala heard this, it impacted him. So he went home to Bindra House in Pune and was very morose and depressed because his son was going away with Baba, Erach. He was going away. And Baba had said that he would never see him again. So he was all the more depressed. So one day so he had his son Merwan, whom some of you may have met, and then he had his daughter Manu. So one day during the course of conversation, there was an argument between Papa and Manu, and he slapped her. He had never ever raised his hand on any of his children. But he was so depressed that he couldn't control himself. And he then went into the corner and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. So this was the kind of reaction that some people had. Mansari said that she wanted to stay on Mehrabad Hill. But Baba said, you're on your own. No one's going to take care of you. And Kitty and Rano were sent to Bombay. They took up jobs to teach in schools. Katie Irani joined the Japanese consulate and stayed with Arnavas. So several people were asked to stay with their relatives and so on and so forth, and people were kind enough to put them up. So out of the 4 women, 3 of them were a sure shot of going with Baba. Mera, Mani, and Meru. And Gohar. But Gohar thought in her mind that she would not be selected to go with Baba. And she contemplated suicide. The moment this thought crossed her mind when Baba called her, "What are you thinking?" And Baba constantly did that with people. "What are you thinking?" And you can't lie to Baba, you have to tell them the truth. So he says, "Baba, I thought you were not going to take me and I was contemplating suicide." What made you think that? What made you think that? Of course you're a part of the 4. So they were the 4 women who came for this. So this was the first New Life prayer. You see, for the last 28 years, Baba had not said a single prayer. And a prayer to God, Baba never said prayers to God. But during the entire New Life, you'll see prayers after prayers after prayers to God. May God help Baba to definitely take the step which he's taking, to give up everything and to go away irrevocably, so that from October 16, when he enters the New Life, there will be no turning back. So this is the New Life prayer. And this is, Baba spontaneously said, this is from Erich's diary, Baba spontaneously said an encapsulation of the New Life. दिल गुजरी जैसे तैसे आज गुजरी ऐसे तैसे हर हल्के गुजर नहीं ऐसी तैसी. Yesterday passed by somehow, today passes by thus, tomorrow passes, but who cares? So this was a little thing from Baba. So Meher Baba ends his new life of multifarious activities and with a few companions begins his new life of complete renunciation and absolute helplessness from October 16, 1949. Some people are rolling in, so I'll just wait a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, I can just do a little pitch. I don't know whether all of you know that we have now launched a digital edition of Glow International. So the print edition is for $60 for 2 years, and the digital is for $30 for 2 years. And we would like you to give this inexpensive offer to your friends, your family. We want more and more of you to give gift subscriptions to people, the digital ones. And so that I can fulfill Baba's mandate of sharing his message, and then you can do your part of the work of sharing his message. And more to your family members. I hear so many stories about your, my father or my mother or my sister or brother. They've been interested in Baba, but they have really not come to Baba. This way, when they get this, they get to read it, or at least read some part of it, and that generates interest. So the New Life had a mission, which was very, very strictly adhered to. You've all read that mission, but I'm going to read it to you once again, because what I have done in the course of making this presentation is that I have broken the mission into several different parts and then qualified it with stories. So the new life had four parts to it. There was labor, there was begging, there was gypsy, and there was langoti. Now, do you know what langoti means? Langoti is where you wear the loincloth, is known as langoti. So in some parts of India, people wear them all the time, langoti. It's something like a dhoti that you may have seen, Gandhi used to wear, something like that. But it's very similar to, but langoti is across from between the legs. So that was a langoti, and we'll come to that section later. So the new life is endless. And even after my physical death, it will be kept alive by those who live the life of complete renunciation of falsehood. Now, when Baba said complete renunciation of falsehood, it went on to complete renunciation of lies, complete renunciation of hatred, complete renunciation of anger, complete renunciation of greed and lust, and who to accomplish all this do no lustful actions, do no harm to anyone, do no backbiting, do not seek material possessions of power, who accept no homage, neither covet honor, nor shun disgrace, and fear no one and nothing, by those who rely wholly and solely on God, and who love God purely for the sake of loving, who believe in the lovers of God and the reality of manifestation, and yet do not expect any spiritual and material reward, who do not let go the hand of truth, and who, without being upset by calamities, bravely and wholeheartedly face all hardships with 100% cheerfulness and give no importance to caste, creed, and religious ceremonies. The new life will live by itself eternally, even if there is no one to live it. So as we go along, you will see Meher Baba unfurling the elements of the new life. So he declared the new life on August 1st, 1949. And to do that, he arrives at Mehrabad. And this is a photograph. I don't know whether you've seen this picture, but this is Mehrabad on the first day of August 1, 1949, when he's walking with Irich at the back. Irich drove him from Mehrabad, from Merazad to Mehrabad. And one day Irich mentions to me that after the whole thing, after he had shocked everybody and things like that while declaring about the new life, Irich was driving him back to Merazad, and Baba turns to him and says, "So what did you think?" So Irich says, "This is the life I came for." Wow. So So then what happens is that there was a little bit of fun at this first day. Dr. Ghani, as you know, Dr. Abdul Ghani Munsif was one of his school companions, but then later on became his disciple. But he was also a very hard smoker, could never give up smoking. So on this day, particular day where you see Baba coming towards on the veranda of Mehrabad Mandli Hall, several people had gathered to join him for the new life. And one of them, and you'll hear a lot about him later on as we go along, was Daulat Singh, Sardar Daulat Singh. So Munsif and Daulat Singh were chatting at that time while Baba was coming in, while he was walking past. So he takes out Munsif's cigarette and puts it on Daulat's lips. And the worst thing that a Sikh can do, which is absolutely sacrilegious, which is the highest sin that a Sikh can do, is smoke a cigarette. And Daulat Singh takes the cigarette, takes a couple of puffs. Baba takes the cigarette, puts it back into Munsif's mouth, and turns to Daulat and says, "You have passed." Now, these are the kind of fun anecdotes that you hear about the new life. So, most of the time, at this time, nobody knew what was the new life, or what Baba had to say about the new life, or this was just the warming up. So then Baba comes and says that we will have prayers to God. So so Meher Baba, during the new life, had assumed the role of the aspirant, the perfect seeker. He was not the perfect master. He was the perfect seeker. And so he had his disciples and all those who followed him focus less and less on himself in human, as God in human form, and more on the impersonal aspect of God. He brought this shift of consciousness. How did he do that? He did it through the medium of prayer, something that they were not at all used to. Meher Baba in the new life was taking on the role of the aspirant and the seeker of God, as one of us, praying continually to God for help, for forgiveness, for guidance for himself and those of him. So one of the prayers that I gathered from Erich, he had it written down in his diary, was, "In the name of God Almighty, I praise and utter Almighty God, full of glory, full of radiance, all-knowing, preserver of all, God of gods, King of kings, protector of all, creator of all things created, bestower of bounties and giver of food to all, Lord of nature, O Almighty God, the Ancient One, forgive us, bestower of grace, O merciful, O omnipotent, O omniscient, O Lord of all, O nourisher of purity." So one day I asked Erich, I said, there are so many prayers in the new life. Did Baba prepare them ahead of time? He said, no. He would stand under a tree and said, "Now say this prayer," and he would say the prayer. And then everybody else would follow. For example, this one. "May God, whom the Muslims call Allah." This was read out on the first day, on August 1st, 1949. "May God, whom the Muslims call Allah, whom the Zoroastrians call Ahura Mazda, whom the Hindus call Ishwar Paramatma, and whom many others call by many other names, may He, whose union the lovers seek in self-annihilation, whom the seers see as the only reality, and whom the knowers know as their own real self. May this supreme conscious being, this conscious avatar and perfect masters, say he through his all-merciful act bestow on us his grace, and may he solve our difficulties by the end of this year. And may he, according to Baba's 1949 circular, finish everything by the end of this year, to enable Baba to break his silence in the beginning of the next year, to speak the one and the last word of all embracing divinity. And this picture that you see is all these people who are standing there are came with their prayer books, and they opened up their prayer books and read prayers. And this picture is of Abdul Ghani Munsif, Baba explaining to him what the new life was. So it's an interesting picture. And then there's another popular New Life prayer that you must have heard, and many of you probably say it. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. I'm not this, I'm not that. I'm nothing but a living lie of that truth that is me. And unless the lie is dead, the truth cannot be known. This was Erich's favorite prayer. So then came the issue of sending out circulars. So as I mentioned to you yesterday, there were three forms of circulars: the yes walas, the no walas, and the arrangement walas. So there were people like Sarosh Irani who were they were the yes walas, but Baba designated them for different tasks. So the four companions were so this is the picture of Meher Baba with his New Life companions. And this is, the four women were Mehra, Mani, Meru, and Gohar. Mehra was 42 years old, Mani was 31, Meru was 22, and Gohar was 33. Now, in another slide, I'll show you will be the ages of the men. Meher Baba was 55 and a half years old. So these are people who are the yes-walas, who eventually said yes to Baba, that they would join the New Life. Now the person fifth from left, Minu Kharas, he was a yes-wala, but he had accentuating circumstances, and he could not join him. Yes, sure. Sorry about that. Minu Kharas. And we published one of his books called The God Seeker. And that's available as well. Now so these are the companions. Now, one of the companions, and I particularly want to narrate this little story. He was a yes-wala. And his name, I wanted to mention his name to you. Okay. His name was, which you may not have ever heard, his name was Manik Mehta. He was, you're nodding your head. Did you hear of his name?
It sounds familiar.
Okay. Huh? No. So his story was very interesting, and Erich narrated it to me, and I've published it in the book, The Ancient One. He was one of the yes-walas, and he used to conduct Baba meetings in Bombay. and was very devoted to Baba. He was a very charismatic man. He had long hair and no aspersions on you. And and he had this group of primarily women who came for his Baba meetings. He would speak on Baba and so on and so forth. And he enthusiastically said that he was going to come for the new life. And then he wrote to Baba to say that he wanted 1 month more to a delay in joining Baba. And month went by and he didn't join Baba, and he wanted more time. And so Irit says, unfortunately, it turned out that this individual never joined the new life because he was unable to shed certain attachments which had been allowed to form and to which he had become addicted. And therein lies a lesson for us all. He became so drenched with the admiration that he drew from his listeners that he forgot to shake himself out of it and fell a victim to its enchantment. This is the reason, this is Irat saying, this is the reason why I repeat Meher Baba's exhortation to be very careful to live a guarded life. The focus should always be one-pointed attention on Meher Baba, for only then are we all safe. So these false masters who eventually assume the role of guru, master, perfect master, and all kinds of roles, what do they crave? One garland. And Baba has said this in one of his discourses. They crave one garland round their neck, one individual to go and touch their feet. This is what they crave. Sometimes many of them, of course, crave money and collect money, but many of them don't care for money. They care for attention and devotion from these disciples, from these people who come to them. He never came. So this is a big lesson in the new life. So I wanted to share that with you. So then came October 16, 1949, and Baba had a prayer read out in Mandli Hall. This is Baba in Mandli Hall. So before, this was October 16. These are the companions that I told you. If you could have a quick look at their ages. Some people have asked me, who is Anna 104? Because that's a strange sounding name. And he was a Baba lover who, anytime he asked him, he was not sick or he was not well, Anna, what is it? I have a fever, it's 104. So his name was Anna Sahib, and he would say Anna 104. So these are the various different people. You know most of them. Babadas, you'll hear another story about him. He had long hair, beard, he wore robes and so on and so forth, but he was a very devoted Baba lover. Baidul, Daulat Singh, Dr. Donkin, Erach, Ghani, Gustaji, Kakabaria, Murli Kale, Nilu, Pendu, Sadashiv, Vishnu. So there were 4 women and 16 men on the journey to the new life. And here are the 4 women in the new life. Gohar Irani, Mani Irani, Mehra Irani, and Mehru Irani. So when Baba indicated that everything had to be sold, everything, from kitchen utensils to crockery to everything had to be sold, except for his tomb that had to be kept intact. Mehrazad yesterday I talked to you about Merazad was taken over by Merji Karkaria and Mehrabad by Nariman Darachanji. Now, every time that the Darachanji family, when I say Darachanji family, Nariman Darachanji and Arnavaz Darachanji. Arnavaz Darachanji was my godmother and Iraj Sawala was my godfather. So Arnavaz, every time she went abroad, she would bring all kinds of tea sets and crockery for Baba and for the Mandli. And one of these tea sets was this one. So when the time came for them to divest all this beautiful crockery from England, from various different countries, she bought the crockery that she gave it to Baba and paid for it. And then she donated it to Beloved Archives. So we now have this set in Beloved Archives. So this is a very important slide. Meher Baba sat with his companions and explained the 4 stages of the new life. The first would be an interval of relaxation for 10 days. This is to acclimate them gently, very gently, and not rough things up. The second would be an interval of training at Belgaum. And the third, a sort of 10-day vacuum before actually entering the new life. And the fourth stage, from January 1st, 1950, the new life would be launched, characterized by 100% hopelessness and helplessness. So much so that even the gods will envy it. Iraj would, I'll come to that also, I'll read a little bit, but Iraj would often say that the new life could not be followed by any individual, any individual who did not have the presence of Meher Baba. It was impossible. No individual, if he wanted to follow the new life, would be able to do so without the grace of Meher Baba. It was so difficult. I might speak to you for hours at end, but I'll only be conveying an infinitesimally small part of what the suffering they had to undergo. When he said hopelessness and helplessness, they meant it. The most important point to remember in all circumstances, this is Baba Singh, is to remain cheerful and happy. Spells of despondency, annoyance, and disgust will assail you, but you should try not to show it on your face. Anger might come, but you should not express it. So this was the 4 stages of the new life, which were very important. And then they start off on the journey to Supa. Now, for a group of people, 24 people, who had never walked in their lives, it was 18 miles to Supa. Can you believe it? Again, without Meher Baba's presence, they couldn't have done it. So they first, at a government rest house, was their first stop. And this is a picture of that government rest house. So then they moved towards Belgaum. And now Iraj's job was to pitch a tent every time, wherever they went, and Baba would stay in the tent. And this is the tent in which Baba stayed. But what had happened is that when they gathered in Mehrabad, some of them came a little later and joined in Belgaum because this was a period, a loosey-goosey period for Belgaum. Now what did they carry? They carried a white thick cotton kafni, 2 for each one. So kafni is a long robe that you've seen Baba wear. Baba wears a long kafni, so that's called a kafni. One of them should be woolen. A blanket, 1. A woolen suit, 1. A cotton suit, 2 shirts, 1 woolen, 1 cotton, 1 silk, 2 pajamas, 4 langotis. Langotis are those things that you wear. 2 handkerchiefs, 1 towel, 1 tin suitcase, 1 big theli. Theli is a cotton bag on which was written, Prem se bhiksha dijiye. Give alms with love. It was written in Hindi. 1 lota and 1 thali. Lota is a metallic cup, and they would use it for everything, for drinking water and going to the toilet and everything. They use the same lota. And thali is a plate. 1 tube, toothpaste, 1 toothbrush, 1 comb, 1 mirror, 1 shaving set, 2 cakes of toilet soap, 1 pair of boots or shoes, slippers, and 1 pair of chappals, that's slippers. Those in the habit of using spectacles, wristwatches, false teeth may take these with them, only if they are using them. Everyone should have 1 durable walking stick. Regarding headgear, each one should have his own with which he is familiar. When coming to Mehrabad, he should bring a new one with him instead of the old one. All should arrive in Mehrabad without any money in their possessions. And this was dictated by Baba. This is an original document here. So, no one had money. 0 money. Only Kaka was given 6,000 rupees. Now, Prakash can translate it into dollars. So, at 80 rupees, today's rate, 80 rupees to $1 is 6,000 rupees. And he was the treasurer. And as we go along, you'll notice, you'll hear as to how the men would grumble, because Kaka would not let them spend on anything. But that money was being used to feed animals. So they would grumble that for human beings, Baba is not permitting the use of this money, but for animals he's permitting. So then Baba made all of them take an oath. Just before the companions took the oath, Baba said, "My old life places are on the altar of absolute godhood and divine perfection. My new life makes me take the stand of a humble servant of God and His people. In my new life, perfect divinity is replaced by perfect humility. In my new life, I am the seeker, the lover, and the friend. Both these aspects, perfect divinity and perfect humility, have been by God's will, and both are everlastingly linked with God's eternal life." The oath that the companions took before setting out was, "I will abide 100% by the conditions given today to me by Meher Baba. These conditions are based on the original conditions to which I said yes. I will see to the material needs of myself till the very end, and if nothing is spiritually or materially gained, I will not hold Baba responsible. Anything that happens to me will be solely my own responsibility before God." As for Meher Baba, he was the avatar, a real man with no divine attributes, and he did not enjoy bliss, occasionally used his power, and always had all knowledge. As you know, the avatar has power, knowledge, and bliss, but he put bliss aside. But he laid them aside for the sake of companionship and lived in the present moment as we must today. So then the issue came up. When they were in Belgaum, the companions had been permitted to bring a few musical instruments with them. And Baba played the dholak, as you can see, the dholak. And Adi the harmonium, and he sang ghazals. Baba asked Ghani to write a poem about the new life, which is known as the Song of the New Life. And Baba dictated the chorus and indicated to him to incorporate into the poem the chief principles of the new life, such as obedience, suppression of anger, greed and lust, truthfulness, cheerfulness under all circumstances. Baba explained to him the poem will be sung as a prayer each morning before starting the day's activities. Later, Dr. Ghani composed the New Life song in Hindi, and after some corrections by Baba, he was asked to translate it into English. So I took it upon myself to also translate it into English, but I'm not going to say it now. But what I'm going to do is, I will I was going to recite it in Urdu so that I can't find it just now. But anyway, what I did was that I have here, and I'm going to see how it works. There's a Baba lover who now lives in Mehrabad. His name is Gopi, and he is probably one of the finest singers of Urdu, Telugu, and singer. So I have his recording over here, and I'd like to see if it works. Would you like to hear the whole song, or should I move on to the next one? Yeah.
Is this Urdu or Telugu?
It's Urdu primarily, yes, yes.
And you know Gopal in Chapel Hill area?
Yes, I know Gopal, Gaurav, yeah.
I've heard him sing the song.
Yes, everybody, most people know how to sing it.
Telugu is his native language, but I guess he knows it.
Yes, it is.
Gopi is one of the new trustees.
Yes, you're right. So, absolute renunciation was one of the key of the new life. And in the new life, Baba was setting a pattern for us, for all of us. These are some of Iraj's thoughts. For us, for living in his presence in the now, the present moment, the active present, forgetting all else on our path to God. This was a pilgrimage, a journey with him as a companion and friend and brother. The companions were told to have no thought of departure or arrival. They were to start with renunciation and detachment, to give up all attachments and links with the past and their families. There was to be no thought of future, just the present moment. And then Iraj remarked, Baba's presence itself was forgetfulness of our beings. That is a fact. So I have extensively interviewed Iraj on the new life, extensively. And every single question that I asked him, he would answer. So I said, I one day asked him, did uncertainty arise in the minds of the companions when Meher Baba started to dispose of property in Ahmednagar prior to embarking on the new life? So Iraj says the companions took Baba and the new life seriously, and they were neither upset nor uncertain. Our prime motive was to follow him and obey his every wish, but the managers of the property were astonished. So another question, this is a very long interview, so I'm just selecting a couple of them. What was the feeling or mood of the companions regarding the very strict conditions of the new life laid out before them at the August meeting? For me, it was no surprise because I had known about them in advance. When Baba gave me the points for writing up the draft in his presence, it mattered very little to me whether it was new life or old life, since I had not come to Baba with any expectations. He called and I came. Shouldn't we follow the same thing? No expectations. None. What he gives us, we take. No doubt the conditions were very strict, almost impossible. But having exercised my freedom to come to him when he called and remaining as his slave, nothing like that disturbed me. And further, I did not believe that the conditions were difficult to observe, since in fact we were already leading such a life, living as the Mandli. The difference was that we could not express outwardly that Meher Baba was our beloved Lord. We had to keep this feeling to ourselves. And we also had to maintain a cheerful appearance at all times. We had to, under the latter condition, for instance, we could not cry out because of fatigue or exasperation. So, then what do I ask him? Then he says, I had to leave my parents, a young brother and two small sisters. But all this must surely lead one to wonder who could be the one for whose sake men were willing to leave everything. And it also reflects the greatness of the individual who was able to lead us into such a life, for no ordinary man could have inspired such a following. So Baba had called Meherwan and told him, from this point onwards, you will look after your mother and your sister. And Mirji Karkaria hired him in his company, and because you will never see Iraj again. So even when Meherwan once or twice saw Baba driving around, he would turn his face because strict instructions were given never to see Baba, even if inadvertently we happened to know that Baba was in the area I was passing by. So then I asked him, would you consider the new life the most important phase of Baba's life? Which I do. I consider the new life as the most important phase of Meher Baba's life. So he responded, Iraj, I would consider the new life to be an important phase of Baba's life because he himself said that it was eternal and that even if there was nobody to live it, it would be continuous. It was a new side of his multifaceted ministry. In the new life, Baba was more of a companion and a perfect seeker than God in human form, which was just the opposite of the new life. So I asked him, what do you think of the importance of the new life? When we set out for the new life, my only aim was to follow Baba wherever he went. I never thought of any end result, and in fact, none of us thought of any material or spiritual benefits which would accrue from following Baba into this new phase. We as his mandli fulfilled his every wish and whim and obeyed him wholeheartedly and without reservations. I'm sorry. It's just that my 5 o'clock alarm goes off. I just switch it. It's an alarm that at 5 o'clock that says Meher Baba calling. So this was a life renouncing all attachment to the past by living completely in the present, relying only on God, renouncing the false self, renouncing all material and spiritual benefit, renunciation of self-centered moods and emotions. So here I will digress and speak about my situation of my personal life. So I reached a stage in my life, some of you have heard the story in great detail, but I'm going to share it with you, that when I was in college, I decided that I would renounce the world, renounce my parents, leave everything, leave my home, my heart, stop studying, and go and live with Baba. So, and I was going through a lot of physical changes, mental changes. I would feel hot when it was freezing cold. I was feeling cold when it was hot, and all kinds of abnormal changes were happening to me, and my parents were very, very worried. So I wrote to Baba saying that I am coming to Meherazad, to live with him. And I wrote a long letter to him. So Baba immediately reacted with a cable. Renounce nothing but your present attitude. But I was implacable. I did not relent. I wrote back saying, Baba, I'm coming. I'm coming whether you like it or not. So, I don't want you to read it because I'm reading it to you. So he wrote back to me saying, for spiritual aspirants, renunciation is of help. But those who love the avatar and are under his direct guidance do not have to renounce anything. The lovers of the avatar have simply to obey the avatar's instructions and to love him wholeheartedly. But I wrote to him saying that I was coming, that I was not going to listen to him. I would disobey him. Now, my mother, who I loved dearly, she passed away at 99, was the only one who I shared this secret with, because I felt that she might take my leaving suddenly to heart and it might affect her health, or it might... So I told her that I had written to Baba, that I had decided that I was going to leave everything. I've already bought my tickets to go to Ahmednagar, and I'm going. So what she did, the clever mother that she was, that she went to the post office and took the postmaster in her confidence and told him that she will be sending cables and responses will be coming, which should be kept with him. And I told her that she should not tell my father, that because there you get cables at home in the middle of the night. So she wrote these long cables to Baba. She would keep telling me that what if Baba said no, what would you do? If he says no, you can't stay at Mirazad, what would you do? So I had all these fanciful ideas. I would build a hut in the field, and I would sit there, and I would meditate, and I would beg for food, and all that kind of thing. So she was most worried. She says, look, I'm happy that you're going to Baba, but I'm terribly worried and scared that some Mahatma Yogi, somebody might pull you away and lure you away into some kind of a spiritual abyss. And that was her worry. And that she expressed to Baba. So Baba writes to me, don't be led astray by any Tom, Dick, Harry of a spiritual master. Beware of such cheap experiences and spiritual stunts of spiritual clowns. I was not placated. I wrote to Baba again that I was coming. So then he writes to me in the same vein, the world will know who I am when I break my silence. And then you too will realize my infinite love for you and my lovers. But I wrote back to him, saying that I had bought my ticket and I was coming. And I told him when. So that's when he became tough with me. And he wrote to me, to obey the God-man is the highest form of worship to God in human form. Obey me implicitly if one day you want to know me as I am. And the ocean of my love is yours to fill your heart with. And then the last one, which looks simple, was the most difficult. Be cheerful and happy in my love. So what happened was that I was in a terrible state of mind and suffering, and my parents were worried about me. Then, of course, my father got to know. And so I mentioned a little bit about this yesterday, was that I saw a small ad in the paper about the Third World Religions Conference. And I narrated this yesterday to you, so I won't repeat it. But I was selected to go to the Third World Religions Conference. And I'm standing on the extreme left. There was the representative of the Orthodox Church of Greece. To his right is Swami Premananda, who was a spiritual master. And to his left is Baron Frary von Blomberg, the secretary of the conference. And then, of course, after that, I told you the story about how I met Baba, went to Baba, and so on and so forth. Now, when you are a young teenager, you have all kinds of fanciful ideas, which I had. I used to read intense reading Vivekananda and Ramakrishna, and Vivekananda was Ramakrishna's chief disciple. So what Vivekananda was to Ramakrishna, I fancied myself to Meher Baba. So I decided that before I left the house, I would leave a memento for my parents, a photograph of myself. As Vivekananda. So Erich gave it to Baba, and Baba said, "He's a really handsome man," which pleased me no end. So we've talked of the Song of the New Life and music. So then, how are we doing, sir?
20 minutes.
Huh?
20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay. And then, of course,
How old were you then?
46, 65. Yeah, 1920. Yeah, yeah. So then, of course, I went to Pune. Baba invited me in 1965, and then he gave me the mandate to tell the world that he's God in human form, and then he sealed it with this medallion that I showed you yesterday that he gave me. So then we head for to a place called Sarnath. So this is where there was an underground passage in Sarnath, which was, this Sarnath is the home of the Buddha. That's where the Buddhists live. And Sarnath has so much association with Buddha. So Baba went, he took all his disciples to Sarnath, and he went into this underground passage, and they wore only loincloths, langot, that was the langot part. Each reciting the following prayer in silence. All his disciples, and Baba was practically naked, except for the langot, completely bare-bodied and legs without any sandals or anything, just the langot. God, give me strength to follow the conditions 100%. God, help me to speak the truth and not to lie under any circumstances. God, help me to control anger and to keep away from lustful and greedy desires. God, help me to be just, fair, honest, and kind towards my companions and those who come in contact with me. Then all repeated 7 times, Ho gaya, ho gaya, ho gaya, meaning finished. This is the Langoti period of nakedness. So this was the visit to Sarnath. And this picture is a recreation by the Sufis. They had done a play of Meher Baba at Sarnath in the Langoti phase. So this was a photograph that was sent to me for the glow, so I've used it in this presentation. And there's a statue of the Buddha that was used by that has been there for many, many years. So Baba sent the women, the 4 women, to bow down to, he also went in, bowed down to Buddha's statue, and they were told to bow down to the statue of the Buddha. And this was the period in Sarnath. So there was something that I did not mention to you earlier. So I'm going to end with that little anecdote. Today's session. So Baba was the perfect companion. And he would walk in front, and sometimes with Erich. Then there was the men mandli, then the men mandli, then the women mandli. Women mandli would be at the last, as they were walking on the streets from one place to another on their journey, the new life journey. And Baba was not wearing sneakers, he was wearing sandals. His feet were torn, his feet were bleeding, but he would continue walking. Mera would apply Vaseline sometimes, or glycerine or something. So they were walking, and suddenly Baba says, rushes back to the women, goes to Mani, give me the orange quickly that you brought with you. She hands over the orange to Baba. He rushes and gives it to Dr. Donkin. Now, Dr. Donkin had a malady in which he had to eat periodically something, anything. He did not show any signs, but the perfect companion was conscious of the suffering of his companions, the way we should be cognizant of our companions. Dr. Abdul Ghani Munsif was the oldest in the group. He couldn't walk. Even with a cane, he wouldn't walk. So Baba would hold the cane, Ghani would hold his shoulder, and they would walk. And that is the beauty of the God-man, the perfect companion. Jai Meher Baba.
Jai Baba.
Thank you, Naosherwan.